the new album, Find Your Way,
Yeah.
I found this cool quote where you said that the songs on this album are feature films inside 3-minute chunks of music, which I
Yeah.
thought was really cool. And this might be nitpicking, but I'm just curious, what makes these songs, in your perspective, feature films as opposed to just films or documentaries, or
Yeah.
because feature films, that paints a picture of I don't know, something big, something epic, something.
Yeah. Something like Dune. I'm a film guy. I'm a film guy, and I know, but basically that's saying like we're taking a 2 hour story and having a climax and a change up in the third act and everything, and that could be true for some of these tunes. What I think I've discovered now on this record after doing a few interviews about it, people that pulled up specific lyrics, I was like, oh, there are songs on here that are sung from the point of view, the first person, me. You know,
Yeah.
when I say I woke up at the corner of Trinity and 41 on the first song. That's me I'm talking about. The next song as well, when I say here for you, I'm talking to my ex-wife. It's a real story about my personal life. And then I noticed then it goes off into like Randy Newman land or wherever where I'm trying to like create a film or a story like Little Brother or Jacqueline. Um, it starts to turn into fictional characters that I basically pulled up into the time, when during the pandemic and afterwards, just like writing songs and just trying to create new characters.
Hmm.
And I also realized that's where the Beatles influence comes in big on me, like the John and Paul thing. You got John writing "In My Life," "I'm a Loser," "I Am the Walrus," like personal stories, and
Yeah.
then the other guy, Paul, writing about Eleanor Rigby and such, and characters. And so
Right.
a lot of characters in his songs. And so those two, it's just kind of hit me recently, like yeah, a huge influence on me. Um, and as would John Prine be an influence on me. And he's
Hmm.
another guy who doesn't necessarily singing about his own life. He's kind of singing about characters.
Right.
Uh, and then, but you can always hear him in there. You can hear his point of view in there. And I think that was a big part of it. But there's one song on Dishwasher's Blues. That song is actually mentions a song called Five Easy Pieces, a 70s film with Jack Nicholson.
Right.
Uh,
No,
yeah,
I I love that line. That was one that I really honed in on, the
yeah,
line,
that's a film
just
for
because
sure.
you quote Jesus in a line from Five Easy Pieces doesn't mean you have the right to
Right.
tell me how to live my life. Um, which I thought was great, and to be honest, I might use that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
you might as well. I think it's a bit of a stretch to think that some junkie couple was actually really into that noir, that 70s film like Five Easy Pieces. But it rhymed with Jesus, and I just went with it. And another film was quoted in there, From Dusk Till Dawn, which is a vampire movie that takes
yeah,
place on the border. I have him cross the border, and there's just film references all through my songs. I've noticed through time they have had a huge impact on me. I'm a big fan of the cinema, and I go a lot. I go alone. I go to a lot of films. I watch films regularly.
yeah. But
Yeah,
and it's interesting you bring up from Dust to Dawn, because that was a Quentin Tarantino film,
yeah,
and
and Rodriguez,
he's,
the other, yeah,
in addition to being a very interesting, very different filmmaker, he really espouses the importance of songs in films, and as
absolutely.
talked about, okay, what am I going to build around this song, or what song really fits, this kind of thing, hence the Dick Dale surf guitar at the beginning of
Yeah, the
what was that movie?
guys, the Reservoir Dogs.
Now the one after.
The Pulp Fiction.
That's it. At the beginning of Pulp Fiction,
Yeah, he was
and
a master. The way he used "Stuck in the Middle with You" in that really gory scene of he's definitely a master. I mean, I like that. I'm a fan of the Tarantino thing. I'd love for him to get a kick out of some of the film references in my songs. Um, but I also love that cinema verite, like the French idea where the music that's in the scene actually has to be part of the scene. Like it has to be a band or the
Hmm.
radio's playing the song. It's not like Tarantino just drops it on you. Like,
Yeah.
the Scorsese in Casino and a lot of Scorsese films where, like the Stones the Rolling Stones are just as big a part of this scene as De Niro, or whatever. It's just like really impactful music and mixed up quite high. And so I love that stuff. Yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah, yeah. Or even the movie Goodfellas, kind of towards the end, you
Oh
hear
yeah,
the
absolutely.
later piano piece from Layla uh
Right.
comes up, and it's all instrumental at that point, but it's like it and it kind of just
Yeah.
it's the emotion swells and it fits. Um but so I'm wondering, when you're writing though, is there like a movie playing in your head when you're creating or recording these songs?
Well, I mean, you have to get kind of a beginning, middle, and end in there. You have to wrap it up, and leave a little bit of information for the listener to make up their own part of the story. You don't want to give it all away.
Yeah.
Um, Little Brother is in that case. I really thought about it. I sat at this table where I'm sitting right now in my living room and looking out this window. And I started writing this tune, and I remember thinking like, where is this coming from? Like, I I, I wanted to go like I geographically there's a lot of states mentioned on this album, Arkansas, Tennessee, etc. And I was like, I actually remember thinking like, I want to go to Maine. Well, I should probably write Hawaii into my songs, because I end up going to these places and singing these songs. But I wanted to write the state of Maine into one of my tunes.
Okay.
I've been to every state. There's only two left I haven't played in. I haven't played in Hawaii and I haven't played in North Dakota, but they're next. So yeah, I mean, I wrote Bangor, Maine is a musical sounding place to me. It sounds like Tennessee, Arkansas. These are
Hmm.
musical words that have nice poetic sounds to them. And Bangor, Maine, I just up in Bangor, Maine, uh, I drained 1,000 lakes of gin. I wrote that as a line. It's like, what is that even? What character is this? And then I started writing about a brother. I have four older brothers.
Oh.
I actually am the little brother. But then I just made up this story about two brothers that, if you kind of look into it, I don't say all these things, but they're basically, their dad has some kind of business that involves a van and ladders, and when he's done, they take the van and go on a joyride they cross the country and go on basically a big bender. And I started to think of it like a Stephen King story,
No.
you know, because I think it's fascinating. I haven't read many of Stephen King's books. I do like his book on writing, and I do
Yeah,
like the
love
idea
that.
that he wrote The Shining when he was like in the middle of like an alcoholic kind of a journey. It's a dark story about himself. I love that, and I personally loved um, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Hmm.
Uh, and I understand that Stephen King did not enjoy it so much, but as a film, I thought it was incredible when I saw it as a little kid. It scared the hell out of me, and I love that Spielberg did a little tribute to it in another film he made a couple years ago. But anyways, I did think about that song and specifically like a film.
Hmm.
I wanted to have a beginning, middle, end, and the end is it's a tragic ending, but it had to be done. It just came out that way, and I write a lot of songs because I have a Patreon page,
Yeah.
and I start when I was a young rambling street musician in Europe for all those years and just rambling around, I wrote periodically. I kept journals for sure, so I have a lot of journal information. But I didn't really start writing like really getting on the writing thing every day, waking up and giving it a go every day, whether it's a haiku or whatever. I didn't really start doing that until the pandemic, where I
Hmm.
was just like, okay, this is my job. I'm going to get up and act like it more. So a bit of a slow learner, but it was long after I was given a shot with like major label, with big record companies and publishing companies and stuff. back that's when I should have been working really hard on my songwriting. I turned in 10 songs a year probably. That was probably what I was doing. And now it's more like 20.
Wow.
And that doesn't sound like much, but it actually involves getting up and getting on it every day. In this town that I live in, I mean, my mailman probably wrote 20 songs last month. I'm serious. Like the guys,
Yeah.
the sideys, that whole thing about the sidey and the main guy. That is therein lies the crux of the difficulty of living in Nashville and being a professional musician. Because a
Yeah.
sidey, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, being a sidey or whatever, but it's like that is a very limited thing. Like if you write the songs and you perform the songs and can do it on your own, you might have a chance at being able to do this for the rest of your life and not having to, Uber more than you work on art. And nothing against that. It's just like that's the true thing of the nature. Is like being a sidey. If you luck out and get in with the right crew, and then boom, next thing you know, and I know these guys.
Yeah.
I know some very successful sideys. Um,
Yeah, me too.
they're crushing it, and no one really knows who they are, but they're out of town almost every weekend.
Right.
They have their they have an amazing life, but this town is full of those guys. And I'll like walk down my street and I'll see a band loading in a house. I'm like, I didn't know a band lived here, and they're Canadians or something. Like yeah, we're on the road all the time. And I've had that on my own street.
Wow.
Yeah, and I live at way out. I live in the suburbs, and there's still like every now and then I'll hear someone playing a guitar, and it's pretty intense around here. The Music City is really full of a lot of creative people.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I had read about you had a blog piece, a journal piece on your website about the year of haikus, and
Ah,
how, and I thought that was interesting. Like that became like, okay, it seems like, if I'm reading it correctly, that was kind of your way to tricking yourself into writing sometimes, where it's like, okay, I only have to write a haiku.
right.
And then, it's like if you fool yourself to do that much, then it becomes more and more after that.
Yeah, and like if you do something 30 times, it becomes a habit or whatever. Like I have a couple projects going, and one of them's called One Sentence Per Day for Eternity. And
Wow.
because well, you know how you say, "Oh, this year I'm gonna bust out that novel. I'm gonna bust out whatever it is, your
Right.
essay, things," and it's like gets overwhelming because life gets in the way. And that's when you have to have this ultimate respect for like novelists and writers like Murakami and all the, you're like, wow, you like really sat down and went for it. And it's like huge respect to them. And you find out how lonely many of them can be. Um, and like, but if you say one sentence a day, like surely I can commit to that. So about 1,120 some days ago, I committed to that, and I've been doing it. Either on my if I'm at home, I do it on a manual typewriter.
Hmm.
If I'm on the road, I do it on my phone. And I have my haiku per day is another project. And I stopped like being so strict about it.
Okay.
I just call it haiku 2024. That's the file. And yeah, there's we're in the month of April. I bet you I easily have 100 haiku on there because some days I'll write three, and then I'll go 3 days without writing any. But I try to write one a day.
Hmm.
I already did one this morning, just waiting for the coffee to boil.
Percolate.
Yeah, basically, I was just like, wait for the coffee to boil, look out the window, the birds, and something about the birds that were, and that's it's so minor, right? But it's really important to just get the exercise, get the muscle going, and every now and then it turns into a song. And so I just try to show up every day and do it. And I learned that from other writers.
And I don't know, even when it doesn't turn into a song,
Mhm.
does it give you kind of a sense of relief? Like, okay, I did my part for the day. I
Um,
don't have to
there
be
is
too.
something there. I agree. like yesterday there was tornado warnings all day in Nashville, and I
Yeah.
couldn't do all this stuff I had to do, and I was like, oh, the day was a wash. But I was like, well, actually, I did write some things, and so there's a sense of accomplishment that doesn't show up right away. It shows up after a bunch of years of doing it. But
Yeah.
there's no pat on the back thing. You got to keep going. It's ridiculous. I mean, people that win huge awards like Oscars and stuff will tell you that there's never enough pats on the back.
Right.
It's like it's just the journey of getting to do it is is what it's about. And I don't care how high, how whatever silly that sounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
High in the sky. I mean, it's I just that fact that I get to write, and springtime is a definitely a rebirth thing going on. After the new year, and this town, man, we have a PTSD from the tornadoes.
Hmm.
Yeah, this town was like a ghost town yesterday. Like everybody was like, "Oh, well, there's a tornado coming," and no tornado, luckily, came with
Yeah.
some lightning and some serious weather, and but yeah, the feeling, the vibe of that. I just have to go into a world of gratitude and be like, okay, well, a tornado didn't come through and just thrash my existence here.
Right.
I mean, the last tornado was in December, and 3 people died a mile and a half from my house. It was really sad, and it was really, the
Yeah.
neighborhood, the neighborhood was just thrashed, and it's that's a real thing in our lives now here, and that was December. Like tornadoes are supposed to come in the
Hmm.
spring, so we're just entering tornado season now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I went off the track there, but that's the writing. You got to show up every day and do it, and whatever it takes, whatever you got to keep around you to get that going, whether it's a little analog version or your phone. I mean, use the tools that you have, and that's what I do. I try to do that, and I try to do those morning pages as well.
Yeah. I remember in that Stephen King book on writing, he referenced some writer, that came decades before him, who was even more prolific than he was, and talked to. I remember he talked about. I don't remember the guy's name, but he talked about he had a habit. He write every day for like 2 hours, and to the point where he said if he finished a book and there was 10 minutes left in his writing time, he would put in a fresh page and go chapter one, and I'm like, wow, that
Yeah, that's
that is some serious discipline.
we all can't be like that. Let's face it. But that, yeah, David Sedaris, another one. He does 30 in the morning every
Hmm.
day, and I thought to myself, I was like, I can do that. It's hard.
Yeah.
There's always some part of life waiting to take you away from your work, and I say to all songwriters, it's like, we are our minds being charged in the other room. Our phones are full of these of like a melody or something.
Hmm.
All there's I I'd love to have a sit down with like 5 songwriters, all plug our, and then just go, all right, pull up number 96, and then just see what it is on each one, like from Jason to whoever, like just like,
Yeah.
what do you got? Because I know their phones are full of these things. I know it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm in the car. Sometimes I'm in the car just going, da 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 da. Like it's ridiculous. I've got some silly ones on there, but John Hyatt told me this. He's like, well, you should just finish the song. The world can wait, and it's true. If you don't get a verse and a chorus done, you probably never return to it.
Hmm.
I have made a habit of, and I know that did Dear Tick John did this too. That they like assembled. I think they assembled a whole record out of just stuff that was on his voicemails. They
Oh,
just got
wow.
in the studio and then all yeah, they just started. They'd find something that was cool and then they'd go for it. And I I I love that. I love that idea. I bet you that I could make a double album out of just the ideas that are on my iPhone. Like I mean, in a good a reasonable one.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
What?
there's just a lot of there's a lot of half ideas that never went anywhere, and I just I I'm just grateful that they still pop into my mind, you know.
Right. I mean,
Usually in the morning. So
another take on that is one of the bands that I work with is the Fabulous Thunderbirds, and Kim Wilson.
right.
He always says he's like, he's like, yeah, those songs that never quite worked out. He said they're like an old Studebaker. You keep them around for spare parts. And
Yeah.
I think that
Great
serves
way
a
to put it.
purpose too. But and
Yeah,
then to
absolutely.
to dovetail it all though, because with the whole thing with the haiku and the discipline of writing every day. So the title track "Find Your Way" has the recurring line, "Every day is another chance to find your way." Is this all a part of you finding your way?
Yeah. I wrote that song on that couch right back over there. Mid pandemic, I was just going over an idea of something that really happened to me. I really did like eat a Rice Krispie treat that was like laced with pot. It was very strong. It belonged, Chris Robinson had
Oh,
left him with this band. Yeah, I know. Like that guy can handle it. I melted down.
oh,
It altered my life's path. I was like, I got to get my shit together. This is ridiculous. And it could have been dangerous what I went through there.
yeah.
I luckily didn't hurt anybody or myself, and I got home safely. And but it was like it really traumatically like shifted me. I was just like,
Hmm.
what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? And so it was a helpful nudge to kind of clean up my act.
Hmm.
And I I just say that that's what I'm saying. Like, you know what? You can still mess up. None of us are perfect, and every day is another chance to try again. Like the one day at a time vibe. It's just different way of saying it. It's like, okay, you made a mistake. Let's get up the next day and let's just try to you know fly right. And
Yeah.
that's more or less what that's getting to. And part of that is the creative act. For me, expression, and that is part of what helps me stay on the path per se. It gives me some purpose. Otherwise, I'd just kind of be just drifting off into all just doing what I want to do. Which is ridiculous. You yeah, can't buy guitars every day.
Right. And along similar lines, there's also the song "Everything You're Afraid of,"
Mm,
um,
yeah,
which is kind of it's both comforting and kind of a nudge to keep going at the same time. And I
yeah,
especially love the repeated refrain, "Starting with yourself, starting with yourself."
yeah. That song I was writing. I was actually talking to a friend that is dying unnecessarily.
Mm.
From alcoholism. It's just very sad. It's my old drinking buddy from years ago, and I didn't know what I poured it all out. It's like it's if you're frustrated, write a song. If you're angry, write a song. If you're happy, write a song. If you just, I basically just poured it all out.
Hmm.
And that day in the news, an engine had fallen out of a plane. It was not the door thing that happened recently. This
Right,
was
right.
this is a long time ago. Like an engine actually fell out and like
Oh, wow.
crashed through it. I know, crashed through a cornfield or something, or maybe some people's property. But I just remember seeing that, and I wrote, if you're an engine falling out of the sky, kick on the air brakes. Which air
Yeah.
brakes I got from either Bugs Bunny, Wile E. Coyote, or Doc Watson.
Oh,
Watson has a
okay.
line where he says, "Yeah, something about air brakes. Your air brakes, And the air brakes is also a name for a trucker who uses those air brakes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to use air brakes for some reason. Kick on the air brakes, take a deep breath, and stop asking why. Yeah, and I think I basically by the end when someone's so angry and messed up and finger pointing at the rest of the world, it's like they're not accepting responsibility for their own behaviors that got them in this place. Everything else is everybody else's fault, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was just trying to, just tell, like, just kind of go easy on yourself, you know. Um, and then somewhere along the way of that song, I also was kind of talking to America, talking to divide, the potentially divisions of this country, and which is heavy stuff to even just sit here and talk about. I don't, I don't really consider myself. I can't say that I don't consider myself a political songwriter, because I've totally went out there and said it and said things, but I really, like, less and less. My life is about trying to convince someone to do something that I want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just out trying to offer alternatives here, of ways of thinking of things. So that song, "Everything You're Afraid of," it could be applied to uh, either side of the divided nation, that we find ourselves in. And I don't mean to give it credence, give it more weight by talking about it, but it doesn't take much. You just drive around, you can feel it, and if you're observing the world, and certainly the media tries to stress it a lot more, but I don't want to, like, jump on that bandwagon so much. But I just try to say, like, hey, whatever you're afraid of, just go through it and face it. It's probably not going to kill you.
Yeah. Right.
And it's really hard. I think a lot of us are out in this world, are suffering from, like, childhood trauma, unaddressed traumas from childhood, and it might be a minor thing. It might be a minor thing that happened. Of course, there's a lot of very serious things that happen, but I believe we have a situation where we have a lot of adults and a lot of mental illness just from unaddressed childhood trauma, and that song does cover some serious ground. And
Yeah.
that's why I made a silly golf video, kind of tribute to Buster Keaton,
Mm-hmm.
to put on the other side of that. If anybody's listening to this right now, do me a favor and check out the video for "Everything You're Afraid of." My daughter filmed it. We went over to the golf course here in East Nashville, right over by Steve Poltz's house and Langhorne Slim, and songwriter buddies of mine that are both amazing. And yeah, I just filmed a quick golfing video, like, where I was a silly slapstick kind of Buster Keaton vibe.
Yeah, and it's got this
Like,
cool kind of flickering black and white,
yeah, I mean, that's just an app.
imagery and
That's just an app I downloaded, like Vintage Film.
mm-hmm.
Uh, Man, I tell you, I am so proud of that thing. Like, that's the proudest piece of work I've ever been involved with. My daughter filmed it. She's in one scene where she
Mm-hmm.
holds the guitar for me, and we made it one day, and I'm just really proud of it. It's one of those joyous things that is, it comes from a very serious place, and then I put a kind of a comical stamp on the end, which might be a defense mechanism of my own from, that could be a very, like, I could say, yeah, that's what I do. Sometimes I try to make jokes and stuff when I'm, like, talking about something very serious, which this song is about something serious, whether it be about my friend or your friend or a family member.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think we all have this person in our lives that really needs help, and
Yeah.
you can't help them anymore, and you're doing anything to just try to hold your own sanity together. And this was part of it. I wrote that down, just trying to process it myself.
Yeah. But I mean, I also think, because you talk about, you get nervous about addressing certain issues and politics and things like that. But I always thought that was one of the advantages of songwriting is
Mm.
you can use metaphor, you can bob and weave around the subject matter and discuss it in more artistic ways, that get more people thinking, and they're not afraid of necessarily. There's so much shouting going on online now where it's just
Yeah,
direct assault, and but I love about this song and other songs of its ilk is it can kind of seep in, and you know people are curious about it. They're not on the defensive immediately, and then that gives them a
yeah.
chance to let it soak in a little.
Yeah, there's a yeah, the catharsis is there. The release, the cathartic release of writing for us writers. We get to kind of dump it out, and yeah, and use a little metaphor, and you don't have to just scream it. You don't have to point. I've written a few finger pointy songs. I'm pretty sure I have.
Hmm.
I've certainly written a few that didn't go anywhere, you know. But I'm talking about ones I've published. You know, on my Spotify page now, there's over 100 songs, and there's a couple of them like there none of them are really finger pointy in a way that's not also talking about myself. Because every time you're doing that, you are, and even in the song "Everything You're Afraid of," I'm talking to myself too.
Hmm.
Absolutely. That's part of the reality of writing. When I say in Little Brother that none of that is my life, that's pretty much true. In Dishwasher's Blues, I was a dishwasher at one point,
Okay.
and I did live. The very end of that song says we're killing roaches in a flat over Squaresville, which no one's going to know what that means.
Yeah.
But basically, there's a vintage clothing store called Squaresville in Los Feliz, California,
Oh.
LA, and I lived over it. And there was huge roaches there that I used to
Oh.
capture and set underneath the landlord's door. But I wrote that into this person's life story. And there was a Circle K down the road where all this kind of nefarious, like it just was a little bit sketchy down there. And
Yeah.
so I wrote them, the couple in the end, they die in the parking lot of the Circle K. That's just something I wrote in from observing this one parking lot over and over again.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I've gotten into some trouble in my life. Um, and I'm not embarrassed about it. Um, I'm not like trying to shut it out or anything like that. It's something I address today. Some of my younger, wilder escapades as a rambling, traveling salesman. Yeah, that was me, Willie Loman. Yeah, in a way, it was like that. You're basically out there selling your wares. It happened to be CDs at the time.
Right.
Good old CDs. Gotta love those things, man.
Oh, yeah. No, I still have, I don't know, maybe near 500 of those. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, they sound just fine. And if you everybody's like vinyl sounds better. Well, yeah, it sounds better if you have a really good stereo system. Doesn't sound better on one of those $50 turntables from Walmart.
right.
Got a
Right.
really good, it's like so. And then the vinyl, carrying the vinyl around. If I could just completely complain about that for a second, I love vinyl, but
Yeah.
imagine, I don't think Jack White was thinking about the folk troubadours like myself having to haul a suitcase of vinyl around Europe.
Right. Right.
Like that's me. I'm on the road carrying one of those like I'm dragging a suitcase full of vinyl, and we all know what it's like to move your vinyl collection, or those of us of
Oh,
a certain age.
yeah.
I'm doing that every day.
Right.
It's cool. I love it. I only listen to vinyl as well. I mean, I have a CD player, and right now I do have a Mance Lipscomb CD in there. Um, but I pretty much listen to vinyl, um, and my collection is mostly of uh, old, passed on African American badasses that founded, our country's music. From
Like chess records kind of thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, I like the Texas country bluesmen. I'm a Lightning Hopkins guy. I love Doc Watson too. He's a white man that was a blind man from your neck of the woods over there in North Carolina, and he was kind of the gateway for me to like, oh, that's Mississippi John Hurt song, and then I went, sometime in the '80s or whatever. When I when I went back from the Beatles and the Stones into the Everly Brothers, into the Louvin Brothers, into Doc Watson, and then Doc Watson, Doc Watson sang about Mississippi John Hurt or John Henry, and then you
Yeah.
go that way. And then the Beatles actually sang about Elmore James, or George Harrison said Elmore James got nothing on this guy, in one of those. He was talking about he was taking the piss out of John Lennon's slide guitar playing in one of his tunes.
Uh,
And I was like, I'm in the 8th grade. I'm like, what's an Elmore James? What is that?
right.
And I went down to the library and I found out what Elmore James was.
Hmm.
So yeah, that, we got to thank the Beatles and or the Grateful Dead and the Stones for teaching us about how great our American music was. And it doesn't end there too. The jazz part, the Duke Ellington.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely, during the pandemic, I stopped listening to music with any lyrics eventually, and I was just like all jazz and classical for a while there.
Huh.
Yeah, I was just trying to shut out the news or other people's
Right.
thoughts. And I got really into just musicality of it all. And I think there's still melodies to be purloined um, from classical music as Paul, pinched Blackbird and John pinched Norwegian Wood.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's melodies and variations of melodies out there. The birds have them. The birds are whistling them, and Mozart and Beethoven and those guys um, laid down plenty of stuff that you can. If you let that stuff seep in enough, you're just always full of melodies and stuff. I think it's a very important part of the nurturing of the creativity.
Yeah. Does do you usually start with a melody or do you usually
Mm.
start with the words?
I I would. It goes back and forth, but Neil Young was talking about this the other day. It's like when you get up in the morning and you're like brushing your teeth, and there's this thing going on in your head, whatever it is. That was more of a circus song there.
Right.
What do you
Yeah,
say?
yeah.
It's like, can I do a variation of that? Sometimes it's a melody. Sometimes, man, I will just pick up a random instrument and just whatever comes out.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, this time I'm not going to play a G chord. Okay.
Yeah.
On the piano, I'm going to start with, F minor. I'm
Hmm.
gonna pick a chord I don't even know.
Yeah.
The piano is fantastic for that because really, I'm not a trained piano player, but I learned chords and
Hmm.
triads and things like that. And the piano is amazing. If you just shift, you don't even have to look. Just shift one finger one direction. And you're like, oh, it's just all of a sudden you're making. I'm not a trained musician, right? But I know how to improvise, and I can improvise forever. I can make up songs any time of the day. It's just I found it to be really easy, just
Hmm.
because of relaxed kind of uh, just openness and no fear. I mean, yeah, I'm going to make mistakes, and yeah, I'm going to write some nonsense, and yeah, I'm going to write some throwaways. But if push comes to shove, and let's hope it doesn't come to that, I could write you a tune. It's like it'd be great if that was what they required on tax day. Like,
Yeah.
doing your taxes, Tim Easton, you need to turn in 3 haikus and oh, I'd be like, oh, good, I can do that.
Right, yeah.
That would be my preferred direction to go in that point. And I'm okay. I'm useless in a relationship when it comes to like changing a fan or something. like oh shit,
Right.
like we need to get a professional in here. You know,
Right. Yeah.
but I will write you a poem about it and how I'm afraid of electricity.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, same dynamic in my house. My wife remembers all the important stuff and I remember all the unimportant information.
that's partners. That's you got to have partners. You got to have a yin and yang, right? You got to
Right,
have that
right.
going. I mean, I can change a doorknob. Okay, I'm not totally useless, but
Right.
I've built a few things in my day, but I also get scared thinking about like painting a bathroom. You know,
Yeah. No,
just
I
like
get
I just start to melt down. It's just weird. It's like I really like. I'm not born for this. It's ridiculous. I know it's dramatic and I'm joking, but it's also kind of true. You're like, whoa, like I would rather go work back as a dishwasher than have to
Hmm.
paint the bathroom. You um, I like painting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how far off to that track did I
Right.
get? This is
No,
when
that's good. I
this is
love
when
that's
ADHD comes in handy.
right. But I love the tangents though, because you never know what's gonna unfold and it's in many ways a great insight into different people's minds and thinking and you know, their pathways. It's kind of like when many years ago, when the internet was first kicking off, and I read this interview with Robin Williams where he was talking about being online and the whole idea of hypertext. You know, you're reading along and then here's a text and it's highlighted, so you click and that takes you to something else. And he's like, "Oh, I totally get that. That's how my mind works." So, you know, it's like,
What a guy, you know, what an amazing, like, to see him as a child and like why do I identify with this guy so much, you know?
mm,
He clearly took it to a new level. But I was able to see him do stand up like in the 80s.
I saw
Um,
him live once, yeah, in the
yeah,
80s. Yeah.
I saw him do a benefit for Mothers for Nuclear Disarmament or something.
Okay.
And his comedy was so immediate and to the people in the front row, and he was making jokes about this and that. It didn't reach the back of the field. I was like, what's he talking about? Like, I got, that's Mork. At that time, it's like Mork is here.
Yeah.
You know, I got to get up closer to Mork and see what the hell he's talking about. He was probably out of his mind on, on cocaine or something, but it didn't really matter at the time. I was like, this guy is definitely out there, but I identify with his scattered brain. And
Yeah.
I think as I've grown older, I am able to rope it in a little bit and really focus it. But like the songwriting and the creativity is a huge help for that for me. And parenting, I can have fun. Like I must go walk in the woods on a regular basis. That's just that's all it is. That's
Okay.
like a fact. Yeah, I've got to go. I got to go float a canoe down a river and just chill the f out.
Mm.
I can't because I'll just blow out a gasket from too much, you know, too much, unfocused creativity and stuff. I need to change it up from time to time, and I don't suffer from the same compounding depressions that Robin Williams eventually took him out. I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm prone to it, just like every human being. I think we all are prone to it. Um, but I try to minimize the doom scrolling and the negativity thing. I'm a big believer in feeding the positivity thing. Otherwise, it just grows and grows. And I will I'm not going to watch the news this month, right? And then 3 days later, I'm like, I got to see what happened here.
Yeah.
It's I try my best, but I really believe in being around positive people and having conversations with positive people and asking them how their life is going and meaning it. Like in the song "Everywhere is Somewhere," or sorry,
Right.
everything you're afraid of. "Everywhere is Somewhere" is an older song I wrote about a friend who died. Uh, everything you're afraid of, I say, call a friend, ask them how they're getting on, and mean it.
Yeah.
And I learned that from someone else, and it really is a great way to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
Is to actually call someone up, even if there's a bunch of stuff going wrong in your life or perceivably so. You're having a tough day,
Yeah.
you're having a hard time. Just try calling someone else and ask them how their day is going, and don't even be concerned with what your day is. If they ask you, you can talk about it, but really just call someone else up, ask them how they're doing, and mean it instead of like, hey, how you doing? When you pass someone on, hey, what's up?
Yeah. Yeah.
We human beings do that to each other constantly, all day long. At the drugstore, hey, what's up? How's it going? How's it going? That's a classic one. Like, how's it going? Oh, I'm good. You know,
Yeah. But
does
it's
anyone
not
ever
like a
stop?
real, it's not
Yeah,
like an invitation to, really get to the meat of the issue. It's
yeah.
just kind of a pleasantry.
Yes, a pleasantry. How often does someone stop and go, you know what? I'm having a really tough time with the bank right now, or something. Like how
Yeah. Right. Yeah,
many times
exactly.
does anybody just go like tell the truth when they
Yeah.
ask a question? It's remarkable. It's a remarkable pleasantry. That's a great way to put it. It's a pleasantry.
Right. Right. I mean, and yet I understand the craving for something deeper. There's,
Connection.
yeah, there's this guy who had these one man shows called a guy named Rick Reynolds had these shows called and this first one was called Only the Truth is Funny. And it was a one man show about his life and some really heavy stuff, but also a lot of really funny stuff. But he talked about, he'll be at like a party where there's, people and kids and he said, I'm not good with the small talk kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And he said, people like, a guy will come up, oh boy, these kids, where do they get their energy and that kind of thing. And he said, I desperately just want to look at the guy and say, hey, what's your name? Dave? Dave, what kind of personal pain are you in right now?
Wow. Yeah, David Cross, has a new bit out. It's called "Worst Dad in the World" or something, where he talks about
Oh,
making small talk at the playground with parents, because you got to make friends with these parents, because babysitter stuff. And
right, right. Yeah.
I don't have that problem. I have the gift of the gab, as you can see, as anybody watching this can see. Um, I am that guy that asks someone how they're doing, and if they want to talk about personal pain, I'll go right there with them. So I'm ready for that. But yeah, I'm the guy. Whenever someone starts chatting me up,
hmm
my daughter um, will say to me, "That person's like you." She's like, she knows. She's like, "Oh yeah, that's one of those. That's they're people.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
that like to talk to people. That I am. I'm an armchair anthropologist, man. I'm like,
hmm
that's what I do. I'm into it. I am the guy that is looking people in the eye constantly and trying to smile, and just maybe, I know this is like pie in the sky again stuff, but it's like, have you ever just like had anybody smile at you and it just blew your mind? Like, okay, it might be a pretty girl
hmm
or something. You know,
Yeah.
you're at the supermarket, wherever you are, you might get a smile from someone that just absolutely like okay, I might be more sensitive to this stuff or whatever, but I've had it happen to me before. And I'm not saying I'm hoping that I'm that for someone else, but I don't take the chance that I'm not. You know what I mean? I just smile, and I say, hey. I
Yeah.
don't I always say, how's it going? I'm just like, hey, what's up? Or I say hey, I say hello. And I learned that a long time ago in Europe, I'd say, when you went into shop, when I lived in Paris, when you went into a shop, you said bonjour, madame.
Right.
That's what you did. You didn't just go into the store with your head looking at the ground and get a beverage and a piece of bread or whatever. You said, you acknowledged the shopkeeper, and that was a thing. And that's what I do now. And we don't all do that, but I guess I learned that from the manners of the European, the French. You
Right.
know,
Right. Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. But at the
yeah,
same point, it's like I'm a pretty intense introvert. And so
yeah.
I'm not great with the, what do they call them? Like networking events, where it's just a
Mm.
room full of strangers and there's the guys that are great and they go around and they
Oh,
glad
yeah,
hat everyone. It's like, yeah, I can't do that. I love stuff like this where it's like, okay, it's one on one
yeah,
and you can actually focus and have a meaningful conversation.
yeah, yeah. I'm probably the same way. So I'm the introverted extrovert.
hmm
I just did Folk Alliance. That's 1,000 people blabbing away all the time. And yeah, by day 2 or 3, like, I need help. Like, I need to
hmm
go sit in a quiet space and
Yeah.
just, and I do that. I help with the mental health aspects of Folk Alliance by having these kind of safety rooms, quiet rooms,
hmm
where we're not networking, but it's really
Yeah.
hard. You get locked into it, and you can't stop. My friends Doug and Talisha, they have a thing at Americana Fest. They'll have a party at the end of the weekend where it says at the door, like, no schmoozing,
hmm
no business talk at this. This is, you're here. We're here for each other. And the Wild Ponies is the band name. And it's a really cool thing. It's like, we need that in our lives. And I mean, this is, but here I am in the middle of promotional aspects for a new record, right? Talking to gentlemen like yourself and people about songs, and talking about myself.
Yeah.
So that can get exhausting and also inflate my ego in a way that's unnecessary. But I have my ways of dealing with it now, and that is like writing it out, being honest about how I feel about things, and yeah, and calling a friend and ask them how they're doing and mean it.
Right. But also, again, it's I wanted to talk to you about your music, and that's different from, you know, we've never met, you run into me in a store, and then you just start pushing
Yeah,
the album, you know?
yeah. Or a networking thing is like a music business conference. It's like it's hard because there's a lot of ego, a lot of expectations.
Yeah.
Then you got trauma and this and that. Everything's mixing, and all of a sudden someone shows up from, I don't know, Des Moines, and they show up, and they were the best thing in town. They were the hottest. And then they show up to Folk Alliance, and there's like 20 people that are better than them that they saw in one day or something,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
more whatever. Not better. It's what I mean. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
just an odd thing. It's an odd thing to have your art and commerce brain just frazzled. Like,
Mhm.
oh my
Right.
God, there's all these people doing what I do.
Yeah.
And we're all different, and we're all terminally unique.
Mhm.
Like the thing at Folk Alliance for sure. It's like we're all special, but actually, there's a lot of us that are very similar. We just come from different, attitude, different schools of thought when it comes to songwriting.